Welcome to the Writer Talks. How are you doing? If there is one thing certain about human life, it is life's uncertainties and its vagaries. At times, these vagaries are favorable, and at other times, it tests our will to survive and surmount the oddities. Perhaps this is what lends life its mandatory action, and the one emotion that drives us all through this ride is that all consuming, potent one called love. In my debut novel, it must have been love, but I have focused on this emotion and have explored the caprices of human mind and emotions, as well as themes of identity and self actualization. My novel will soon be published, and I am eagerly looking forward to hearing from all of you. I am sharing my book cover in the description box and would love to hear your comments. Now, let me introduce you to my guest today, Danielle Dayney from Virginia, US. She is a committed writer and a blogger with a huge following. And like me, she too is excitedly looking forward to her debut publication, a memoir, When Love Sticks Around. In this collection of short essays, Danielle recounts her experiences as an awkward child in the piecemeal family that raised her. From her biological father's absence to her mother's battle with cancer to the birth of her daughter, her stories venture beyond anecdote to nest safely among the tangled experiences that shape the people we become. With a keen eye for the pebbles of humour and glimmers of beauty along the rough roads of her life, Danielle has carved a book that feels at once as familiar as a home-cooked meal and as exciting as the first night in a new city. When Love Sticks Around is a memoir of love, loss, humour, identity, and above all, family. The one you're born into and the one that you gather along the way. Danielle affirms those are the things worth sticking around for. In this episode, we discuss Danielle's experiences in Ohio, where she was born and brought up, her return to writing as a means to come to terms with the loss of her mother, as well as her early experiences as a writer, making a foray with rock concert reviews and band interviews for a Toledo-based music magazine, The Glass Eye. But before we dive into this, I would like to urge you, my subscribers, to get more people on board so that we can continue to engage with brilliant writers from across the world. Please do like, share, and subscribe to the Writer Talks. I do hope you enjoy watching me talk to the very dynamic Danielle Dayney. Until next time, stay inspired, believe in yourself, pursue that dream, and smile. Ahoy! Ahoy! Welcome to the Writer Talks. Joining me from Virginia is the talented Danielle Dayney with a memoir, poetry, and blogs to her credit. Ahoy, Danielle.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. That's such a lovely name, so euphonic. Which of the two, poetry and blog, which of these two is your comfort writing?
I definitely prefer nonfiction over poetry, but I do enjoy writing poetry also.
Right. It is so unique that you started your writing career by writing rock concert reviews. And I read that it is for a Toledo-based music magazine, The Glass Eye.
Yes.
Would you like to tell us more about this?
So when I was in college, my professor actually saw something in me and asked me to contribute to his magazine. It was an unpaid position, but it was a lot of fun and writing reviews on albums and getting to interview band members. My biggest band that I ever interviewed was Hoobastank. I interviewed the drummer once.
That's lovely. We will continue to speak more about your writing process, and of course your upcoming memoir. But first, let's dive into the rapid response section. I think you know the drill with the rapid response.
Yes.
Great. So, ready? Shall we begin?
Sure.
All right. So, here's the first question. Between writing a poem and non-fiction, which do you think is harder and more challenging?
Definitely writing poetry is more challenging. It can be freeing, but it doesn't come naturally to me the way writing nonfiction does.
Right. Okay. Now, if it was up to you entirely, what is that one stereotype in the memoir that you would like to break or debunk? Like, the self-congratulatory tone that sometimes seeps in, or a linear timeline? Which of these would you debunk?
Actually, more than anything, I would like to debunk the idea that memoirists write memoirs for themselves, because that is definitely not the case. We write memoirs to understand what we're going through and to hopefully shed light on situations for other people as well.
Right. Fair enough.
It's not a selfish kind of writing. It's more of a selfless kind of writing, in my opinion.
True, and it's all the more difficult, isn't it? You'll have to pick up select parts, and at the same time, you're also putting up your life out there.
Yes, that's very, very true. It's a lot harder to reel it in and cut back when it's your own life that you're writing about. You have to be very selective.
All right, here's the third question now. If you had the option to choose between your book being a Pulitzer Prize winner or a bestseller, what would your choice be?
Definitely a Pulitzer Prize winner. I would definitely prefer that. Sales are important, but just being respected as a writer is definitely more important to me.
Fair enough, fair enough. Now, if you had the chance to meet either of these two literary giants, Ernest Hemingway or Emily Dickinson, whom would you prefer to meet, and what is the one thing you would ask?
I really don't have a preference on either one of them, but I would like to know how they write. What is when do you write? What is your writing process? I'm always intrigued to hear that about any other famous writer. What is their writing process? How do they get from a blank page to a finished product?
Right, right, absolutely, that's true. Now, if you were given the choice again, would you be a publisher or a designer designing book covers? Between the two, which would you opt for?
I would definitely prefer to be a publisher, because I am not as creative when it comes to visually artistic things. That is not in my wheelhouse. So.
Right, fair enough. Between writing reviews for rock concerts and editing, which is more grueling, and why?
Editing is hard, especially when I'm editing my own work. On the 10th or 11th or 20th draft, sometimes it's really hard to see the mistakes. Whereas when I used to write music reviews, it was just really fun. It was a fun and easygoing and exciting thing to do.
Lovely. On a lighter vein now, between Ohio and Virginia, where would you rather be?
Virginia. Although my family is still in Ohio, and they probably would be very sad to hear me say that, Virginia has become our home, and we've been here for 12 years now. I'm sorry, 10 years. 10 years.
Okay, lovely. Thank you for being such a sport. That was really interesting to know. Now, moving to your writing, you identify yourself as a non-fiction writer primarily, and your first book of memoir is coming up in November.
Yes.
How are you feeling?
Currently, or about the book, or everything, because I'm very nervous about the book. I mean, it's my first memoir. I'm nervous, but also excited to share it. This is definitely the first time I've ever had to really promote myself, which I'm not necessarily great at doing. I'm learning. It's definitely a learning process. I feel much more comfortable in the writing process than I do in this stage of the writing. But I'm also excited. It's something I'm really proud of, and something that I really put myself out there with this book and with the subjects that are in the book.
Right. I think about 99% of the writers have told me the same thing, that they'd rather not promote, not get into that aspect.
Yes.
And yeah, I think all of us are equally at sea with that particular thing, particularly when you are publishing for the first time in this sense, on a larger
Mhm.
scale. Right. Yeah. Now, what made you opt for a memoir?
I think so. After my mother passed away from cancer, I had written, like I said, music reviews for a really long time when I was in college. And then I kind of stepped away from writing and went into, I was a paralegal for a long time while we lived in New York. And then my mother passed away from cancer, which is in the book. And kind of as a cathartic way to deal with the loss of her, I started writing about her. And before I knew it, I started a blog and I was writing about her a lot, very frequently. And I started to kind of edit those things, and I just felt like it was something that maybe could help other people too, going through something similar.
Right. I completely agree with you that writing is extremely cathartic. And I think we end up viewing a particular situation, a particular incident, and coming to terms with it in a completely new way once you
Mm-hmm.
are done with writing that.
Yes.
All right. And I loved when love sticks around. It's such an interesting choice of title. How did you come up with this?
So actually, I brainstormed quite a bit with my project manager. I did have a different title before. She just felt like it was not authentic to my book, and so I started going through the essay titles in my book and the subjects from my book, and I came across this one essay towards the end. And it was about my stepfather and how, he had a lot of opportunities to not stick around, just like my biological father didn't. He was never really a part of my life, but he did stay through poverty and through traumatic experiences like that I talk about also in the book. And he stayed, and sometimes that can be love, just staying and being supportive. So that's how I came up with the title.
Great. That's a nice insight into the title. I actually enjoyed reading it for two specific reasons: the honesty in the voice, and the choice of words, and a very gentle pace of the narrative. Particularly this essay entitled "She Sees Seashells," so alliterative and a tongue twister at that.
Yeah.
Right. The 6-year-old's honest observations and fears are so beautifully captured. Would you like to talk about this?
Sure. So that essay actually, it has already been published one time before. And it is about this time where we actually had to rent out our house because my grandfather was very sick and my mom quit her job. So we were living in my grandparents' duplex above them. And it was kind of like if he was having a really bad day, she was also having a really bad day. And so that would make me really have a bad day. And this particular day, I got in trouble for, I don't even remember what I talked back to her, but I mean, I was just also not, in a good place. So she sent me to my room. I had no toys there, just these seashells that she had collected from Florida when she was younger. And I thought if I could get them down for her, they would cheer her up. But of course, when I climbed up onto the dresser to get them down, they all fell and broke. And so, yes, it was a memorable experience, but something that, I don't know, just something that really stuck with me through the years.
It's a very moving, very touching incident, and I mean, as I was reading that, I was just hoping that, oh no, don't break it.
Also, except one. So
Right. Could you read from your favorite section of the memoir, please? May I request you to do that?
Sure, I can read one of my favorite essays. This is an essay about, actually, I need my reading glasses for this, but this essay is about Detroit. We lived in Detroit for approximately 5 years while my husband was in law school. And this essay is just, it's kind of my experience with Detroit as a city. When I moved to Detroit with Justin after our wedding and his acceptance to the University of Detroit Law School, my parents were afraid of what they knew about the city. They mentioned drugs, murders, and gangs, but those things didn't make Detroit what it was. I tried to convince them to look harder, dig deeper, and really inhale the city. If they did, they would have found a moment to enjoy the beauty. They would have seen they would have seen what makes Detroit special. Driving up 95 North to my sunny loft on Adams, Tiger Stadium and the Michigan Central Station loomed, both eerie skeletons full of deterioration. But they belonged there as much as the skyscrapers. The skyline was a mix of ornate pre-war facades and newer structures with sharp angles made of steel and glass. All of these buildings breathed in the wind that blew up Grand Central Boulevard into downtown. In, out, their frames expanding, contracting. The night the Tigers baseball team won the American League Championship in 2006, I ran down Woodward chanting for Maglio Ordonez along with thousands of other people. As I shared high fives with strangers in cars and on the sidewalks under the chill of the October moon, I knew Detroit had a rock-solid heartbeat. It pounded through my chest like a beat-up sledgehammer, dirty and noisy, but powerful and captivating. Detroit's energy was palpable and irresistible, invisible but always touching my fingertips like a current running through electrical wires. It was tangible, as solid as the giant Joe Louis fist statue, a gift to Detroit from Sports Illustrated magazine. When I danced at Detroit's electronic music festival movement, the vibration of Detroit's heart resonated along the river in Hart Plaza. It thumped with the music, swelled with the air, and dripped with the sweat of thousands of people dressed in wild colors. At Lafayette, Coney Island, arguably the best place in the country for a late-night hot dog, it was the secret ingredient in the chili. The employees there worked together like a well-oiled machine, making hot dog masterpieces to satisfy hungry bellies all night long. I took one look at the casino lights and saw it there, bright as day. I heard it in the ka-ching of the slot machines, and it revved in the rushing roll of the roulette ball. The auto industry had catalyzed the growth of Detroit years before. It was about as American as it gets, built by blue-collar families. At one time, people flocked to Detroit for the promise of a house with a white picket fence and a patch of driveway for their American-made automobile. It was the city of the coveted dream. People were ready to put in the hard work because they believed in what Detroit could be. The spirit of those American dream chasers lives on, lingering in the concrete pour to construct Woodward Avenue, in the steel beams supporting the iconic GM Renaissance Center, and even in the crowd cheering when the pigskin is caught by a lion in the end zone. The pride they carried still rushes with the river lapping against Belle Isle Beach. Then, now, always, the Motor City has a pulse. And the title is Detroit Has a Heartbeat.
It gives you such a lovely, candid insight into the city, and Detroit is always associated with cars, and you brought to life a completely different facet of Detroit. Thank you for that. That's truly amazing.
Thank you for letting me read it.
Now, how involved were you in the cover? It's designed so beautifully, has such a distinct appeal to it. Great hues, red and white with interspersed with blue and green. How involved were you in this cover design?
So actually, one of my very best friends designed this cover. It is It's very special to me because the very last essay in the book is about, so after my mom passed away, I insisted that I get this hutch it was my grandmother's hutch. It was in my grandmother's house when I was young on the Green Street. And then when my grandmother moved in with us, she brought it with her. My mom used to paint the hutch every couple of years, different colors to match whatever decorating mood that she happened to be in. She never once removed the paint. She just layered the paint on top of the old paint. So when I got the hutch, I really wanted to make it my own and strip it down and paint it, like a farmhousey color to match my house. And I realized that stripping paint is not easy, and I ended up with a huge mess with all these colors, reds and greens and blues and yellows kind of peeling off in different sections. And so I told my friend that, who is a graphic designer, and she came up with this cover, and it looks amazingly like the hutch did before I ended up just painting it with chalk paint to cover up the mess. So that's where it came from.
That's such a beautiful memory associated with your cover. Lovely, lovely. And as I told you, I think the cover is very, very distinct and extremely appealing.
Thank you so much. She will love to hear that. I will make sure I share that with her.
Yes, of course. Now, how long did it take for you to write this memoir? And tell us honestly, how many edits? How many times did you edit it?
Well, so I started writing this memoir, I guess, in the very early stages when my mom passed away in 2012. So, but at the time I had no idea what I was writing. I was just writing. Once I felt like I wanted to make something more out of it, I started putting the pieces together, edited it myself, probably 3 or 4 times. I hired a professional editor who went through it 2 times with me. Then I started submitting it. Once Brandy Lane and Belle Isle took it over, we went through 6 more edits, plus 3 proofreads. It's a long process. It's probably been, since they took it, it's probably been 2 years.
I can imagine. I can completely understand that, because I have done about 15 times, I think, overall, all put together with the editing. Yes, I was wondering, how many of those. I think after a point in time, you're just done with it. You don't want to look at it anymore.
That's true. Yes.
And even after all that, if there is a mistake, I think that's very heartbreaking, isn't it? To that one missed comma or a period that is missing.
Yes, I hope that there are not any in my book. We've gone through it so many times. So if there's something there at this point, it's snuck through.
Absolutely. Now, what has been a revolution in this journey from writing to publishing?
Oh, you said a revelation, or
Yeah.
is that what you said?
Revelation, yeah.
That publishing is it's definitely a marathon. It's not a sprint. You have to stick with it and work really hard and never give up. Writing is not easy, but it's very rewarding.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. And now looking at all these things firsthand, yeah, you really, really begin to appreciate that. And at the same time, I think, at least I never had a clue that these were the umpteen number of steps that were involved from writing to that final product.
Yes, there are a lot of steps involved, and they're all fun and exciting, but they're all time consuming. It's like hurry up and wait. With every step, you have to hurry up and wait.
Right. Tell us a little bit about your poetry. I read a few of your short verses. When and how did you start writing poetry?
I actually started writing poetry probably when I was in 5th grade. I don't write it very frequently. Usually I end up writing poetry when I am stuck with nonfiction, and it helps me to kind of break through writer's block if I just sit down, and it's very free to write poetry. You can just let your mind wander. Actually, my favorite style of poetry is prose poetry,
Right.
which is kind of like lyrical essay, but also poetry. It's kind of in between those two worlds, which is my favorite. And I have written a few of those.
Right. Do you write it at one go, or you write a few lines as and when those lines come to you, and then develop that? How do you go about it?
So usually I will write a poem in one sitting, and then I will go back to it after it kind of simmers for a little while and edit it as I need to.
Right. Okay. You've had several publications to your credit in the anthologies, and I also see that you regularly contribute to other publications as well. What is your writing process like in the first place, and when did you actually start writing? Uh,
I started writing in second grade. I actually wrote
oh,
my first book in second grade. I wrote a little fiction thing and went to the Young Authors Conference that we had locally and met Bernard Weber. I'm not sure if you are familiar with him. He used to write the Lyle Lyle Crocodile series. He was a children's author. So I met him and he autographed my very first book. So been writing since then. Now my writing process is very different. I get up every morning at 5 a.m. before anybody else in my house is awake, and I write. Usually I try to mind map whatever my essay is going to be about and just kind of jot down ideas and kind of get to, so I know exactly what I want to say in the essay, and then I will free write for a while, and then I'll go back and clean it up several times.
right, right, fair enough. Now, who are the writers who have inspired you, and when did you actually decide that you're going to be a full-time writer?
I decided I was going to be a full-time writer about 7 years ago. I was working part-time for a realtor, and it just wasn't serving me anymore. And I knew that I wanted to take this on seriously, and so I quit my job and took a couple of writing classes and started a blog and just started practicing my craft on there. I've since taken, I think, 6 or 7 writing classes, all online. I've read tons of craft books, just trying to constantly improve. And as far as writers that have inspired me, definitely Mary Carr. She is an amazing memoirist, one of my favorite. And also Elizabeth Wurtzel's More Now Again. It's a very powerful, sad memoir about addiction, but just her writing style is really incredible.
Lovely, lovely. You have also written fiction, isn't it? The Only Regret. Would you like to speak about that?
So yes, The Only Regret was written actually during a fiction class that I took a few years ago, probably about 4 years ago at this point. It's the only fiction class I've ever taken. And I don't know, I'm surprised I found a home for it so easily. The Fredericksburg Literary and Art Review, I know that it's debunked now. The owner of it, she had to move on to other things. But it was a really great publication when it was still around, and she loved it and she wanted to publish it. So I was ecstatic about that.
What has been the best compliment so far for you as a writer?
My goodness. I guess when people say that they connected with my writing, that is really the best compliment, because I want to connect with other people, and I want people to feel like I'm talking to them or feel that I'm sharing something about my life that they have also experienced. So that's the best compliment.
All right. Now, besides writing, what are your other interests?
Well, I have kids, so driving them around. I have kids and dogs. I do like to ski. I don't ski as much as I used to because I tore my ACL a couple of years ago. And that was a little bit traumatic for me. So I stick to the really easy runs now, but I do still ski. And I like to play tennis occasionally.
All right, lovely. So, did you watch the U.S. Open recently?
I watched some of it. My husband really watches all sports, so it was on, but I was probably doing other things in the house.
That was a shocking defeat, I think, for Djokovic.
Yes.
Right. Now, what is that one special or unique thing about Ohio and as well as about Virginia?
One unique thing about my bio.
About Ohio.
Oh, about Ohio. Oh. You have a lot of cornfields in Ohio.
All right.
Very flat. And because we're so close to Michigan, I considered myself, there's always, so I don't know if you follow football, probably not, like American football at all.
Not the American football, yeah.
But Ohio State and Michigan, the college football teams, they're big rivals. So we were always Michigan fans, even though we lived in Ohio. And everybody is either a Michigan or Ohio fan if you are from Ohio or Michigan, and everyone is a rival of the other one. So that's interesting. Virginia, my favorite thing about living here is that in 2 hours in any direction you can find a beach or the mountains. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful state to live in, and the schools are great. We have good colleges, so that's great for my kids as they get older. If they decide to go to college, they have a lot of opportunities around us. So,
that's lovely.
Mm-hmm.
I also read that you have several awards to your credit, isn't it? Twice you've been credited as the Blogger of the Year, and you also have got the third place in Riverside Writers Golden Nib. Would you like to speak about this?
So, Blogger, a long time ago, I don't think that they do it as much as they used to. The Voice of the Year used to be smaller, less known writers. I'm not sure how they do it anymore, but I received a Blogger award 2 years in a row. My first one was for this essay that I wrote about my daughter. It's a very short, it's a micro essay about just this time when I was taking her shopping. She had her own money to spend, and she wanted a stormtrooper doll, like a Star Wars doll, but she was really worried that her friends would make fun of her for buying a boy toy. And I just explained to her that there is no such thing. You buy whatever toy you want. But it was, again, it was a very, very short essay, and that received a Blogger award. And then the next year, I actually received a second award for an essay that I wrote about alcohol abuse. So those two were very, very important essays to me, and I was very honored to receive awards from Blogger. And then Riverside Writers, it's a division of the Virginia Writers Group, which is just in my state. And I received an award this year for an essay that I wrote about, it was the first time I ever went skiing. So.
Okay. Lovely. So we will definitely look forward to November and to the publication of When Love Sticks Around, and all the very best to you. Any other works in progress?
I'm currently working on another memoir about parenting, parenting with anxiety. I have anxiety and depression, so just the different things that I deal with through that, or with that, with parenting and having those. And then I also I have a novel that I'm working on, but it's very early in the writing process, and it's about a girl in Detroit. So it's about a girl being raised in Detroit and her experiences. So
Fantastic. We'll definitely look forward to that. Any special message to viewers of the Writer Talks?
thank you. I would like to say thank you to you personally for inviting me on, and to writers, I guess, just stick with it. It's a really difficult process, but it's really rewarding, and it's a lot of fun. And to any readers that are interested in When Love Sticks Around, thank you, and I hope you love it. And that's it, I guess.
Thank you so much, and really looking forward to the publication of When Love Sticks Around, and all the very best to you. Thanks for being on the Writer Talks.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure having you. Ahoy.